The night was like any other, calm and quiet. Crickets chirped and the wind rustled the leaves. The moon hung high, casting a silvery glow over everything. I was sitting on my porch, rocking back and forth. The old wooden chair creaked with every sway. My pipe was in hand, a thin trail of smoke curling up into the night air, the scent of tobacco mixed with the fresh night breeze. But little did I know, this night would be different. The tranquility of the night was about to be shattered, and it all began with a glance toward the edge of the forest. It started with a flicker of movement, just a shadow at the corner of my eye. I turned my head slowly, peering into the darkness. At first I saw nothing, but then there they were. Two dark figures, barely discernible against the night. They stood motionless, as if carved from the very darkness that surrounded them. My heart began to race, a primal fear taking hold. These figures were real, and they were watching me. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen them, but I couldn't. Fear is a curious thing. It starts as a small knot in your stomach. Then it spreads, creeping into your chest, making it hard to breathe. That's what I felt as I watched those figures. A cold, paralyzing fear. My hands trembled, the pipe slipping from my grasp and clattering to the floor. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like lead, refusing to move. I was rooted to the spot, a prisoner of my own terror, and with each passing moment the fear grew stronger, wrapping its icy fingers around my heart. The moonlight cast long shadows across the yard. Every tree, every bush seemed to take on a sinister shape. The figures remained at the edge of the forest, unmoving. It was as if they were waiting for something, or someone. I could feel their gaze piercing through the darkness, straight into my soul. I tried to rationalize it. Perhaps they were just lost travelers, or kids playing a prank. But deep down I knew that wasn't the case. There was something otherworldly about them. The air around me seemed to hum with a strange energy. And still the figures watched, their intentions a dark mystery. Then without warning, one of the figures moved. It was a slow, deliberate motion, like a predator stalking its prey. My breath caught in my throat, fear spiking anew. The figure took a step forward, then another. Each movement was fluid, almost graceful. But there was an underlying menace, a sense of impending doom. The second figure remained still, as if waiting for the right moment. My eyes darted between them, trying to anticipate their next move. The first figure continued its approach, closing the distance with agonizing slowness. I was trapped, ensnared by the darkness and the fear it brought. The silence was deafening. Every heartbeat seemed magnified, a thunderous drum in the still night. The second figure finally moved, mirroring the first. Their synchronized movements were unnerving, like a dark dance. They advanced slowly, each step deliberate. My breath came in short, shallow gasps. It was then that I heard it, a whisper, faint and indistinct. It was like the wind carrying words I couldn't quite catch. The whispering grew louder, a chorus of voices just beyond comprehension. The figures were almost upon me now, their faces still hidden in shadow. And in that moment, I knew that my life would never be the same. Just when I thought the fear couldn't get any worse, it did. The night was already filled with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant hoots of owls. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears. A sudden flash of light, bright and blinding, erupted from the forest. It was as if the very air had been split open by some unseen force, casting an unnatural glow on everything around me. It was like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the figures in stark relief. The light revealed shapes that had been hidden in the shadows, their forms now stark and undeniable. For the first time, I saw their faces, or rather the lack of them. The light revealed smooth, featureless surfaces where eyes, noses and mouths should have been. They had no features, just smooth, blank surfaces where eyes and mouths should have been. It was as if someone had erased their identities, leaving behind only a haunting void. The sight was more horrifying than anything I had imagined. My mind raced, trying to comprehend the impossibility of what I was seeing. These figures, devoid of any human features, seemed to defy all logic. The figures seemed unfazed by the light, continuing their approach. Their movements were slow and deliberate, as if they had all the time in the world. Each step they took sent a shiver down my spine. The flash faded, plunging the world back into darkness. The brief moment of illumination was gone, leaving me once again in the oppressive blackness of the night. But the image of those faceless figures was burned into my mind. Even in the darkness I could still see them, their blank faces staring back at me from the depths of my memory. I turned and ran, my feet pounding against the wooden porch. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the night, a frantic rhythm that matched the beating of my heart. But as I reached for the handle, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. The touch was icy, sending a jolt of fear through my body. I froze, too terrified to turn around and see what was behind me. The night had taken on a new level of terror, one that I could never have anticipated. The faceless figures, the blinding light, the cold hand on my shoulder, it was all too much. I knew I had to escape, but the fear held me in its grip, making every movement feel like a monumental effort. I whipped around, expecting to see the faceless figures, but to my shock, I saw something else entirely. The figures had transformed. They now had faces, but not human ones. Their eyes were dark voids and their mouths twisted into sinister grins. It was as if they were mocking me, enjoying my terror. One of them spoke, its voice a low, guttural rasp. "Why do you run, old man?" it asked. The words sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't respond, my voice caught in my throat. The figure's grin widened, its eyes boring into mine. "We mean you no harm," it continued. "We just want to talk." Suddenly the figures released me and stepped back, their movements almost synchronized, as if they were part of some dark orchestrated dance. Their grins faded, replaced by expressions of indifference, as if the life had been drained from their faces, leaving behind only hollow shells. "Our time here is limited," one of them said, in a voice that seemed to echo from the depths of the night. "But we will return," he added, his words hanging in the air like a dark promise. With that, they began to fade, their forms dissolving into the night like mist under the morning sun, leaving no trace of their presence. It was as if they were being pulled back into the shadows from whence they came, retreating into the darkness that seemed to swallow them whole. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching as they vanished, my mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. The forest swallowed them up, and the night returned to its previous stillness, as if nothing had ever disturbed its eerie tranquility. The only evidence of their presence was the lingering chill in the air, a cold that seemed to seep into my very bones. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart still pounding in my chest, each beat a reminder of the terror I had just experienced. It was over, but the fear remained, a shadow that clung to me, refusing to let go. I knew that I would never forget this night, the night when the shadows came to life and left me with a memory that would haunt me forever. As I sat back down on the porch, trying to make sense of what had happened, I noticed something strange. The air felt heavier, almost as if it was charged with an unseen energy. The night was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of crickets and rustling leaves absent. It was as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The pipe I had dropped earlier was gone. I distinctly remembered the clatter it made as it hit the wooden floor, but now there was no trace of it. It was as if it had vanished into thin air, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness. In its place was a small black object. It stood out starkly against the wooden planks of the porch, almost as if it was waiting for me to notice it. The object seemed to absorb the light around it, making it difficult to discern its shape at first glance. I picked it up, my hands trembling. The object was surprisingly heavy for its size, and its surface was unnervingly smooth. My fingers traced its contours, trying to make sense of its form. It was a stone, smooth and cold to the touch. The chill of it seeped into my skin, sending a shiver down my spine. It felt almost alive, as if it was pulsating with a hidden energy. But there was something odd about it. The stone seemed to pulse with a faint inner light, a glow that was barely perceptible but undeniably there. It was as if the stone had a heartbeat of its own. It seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. The glow was rhythmic, almost hypnotic, drawing me in. I couldn't tear my eyes away from it, captivated by its mysterious allure. I turned the stone over in my hands, examining it closely. The more I looked, the more I noticed the intricate details etched into its surface. It was as if the stone held secrets, waiting to be uncovered. There were markings on it, strange symbols that I couldn't decipher. The symbols seemed ancient, their meaning lost to time. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen before, adding to the stone's enigma. The figures had left it for me, a parting gift or a warning. Their presence lingered in the shadows, a reminder of the night's unsettling events. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still watching, waiting for my next move. I pocketed the stone, my mind racing with questions. What did the symbols mean? Why had the figures chosen me? The weight of the stone in my pocket was a constant reminder of the night's mysteries. The night had taken a dark turn, and I was left with more mysteries than answers. The once familiar surroundings now felt alien, filled with unknown dangers lurking in the darkness. Every shadow seemed to hide a secret, every rustle a potential threat. The figures' promise echoed in my mind, a haunting promise. Their words were a constant whisper in the back of my mind, a reminder that this was far from over. The night was just the beginning, and I had a feeling that the stone was the key to unlocking the truth.